What's up, fellas? As promised, Betty got our supercharger. I had to build everything to make it. It took about two and a half months on the weekends to machine all this stuff. I got a milling machine now. I almost needed it to do this, so got one of them used and got after it. This is going down to that stock steel mount down there. I moved the power steering pump over and then double walled the stock mount down at the bottom that would normally mount this and mount to the intake. I double walled each side of it, made through bolts, reinforced the brace that goes to the engine, reinforced that, made it double wall, and then all bolted it all together. And it wasn't that easy, but I got it all done, and it's working. I drove it about 60 miles yesterday. I want to make a video and tell y'all and show you the tune in case you're doing this. It'll get you close. Now, the tune that I'm going to show you is for my injectors. I got, these are 553cc Ford injectors, like for a Mustang, or it's actually a kit to convert a Mustang V6 to E85, and put them in there, put the E85 in it, which changed the game with the 4-liter, because it's always wanting to run hot. I cranked it up with 93, and same as before, it was getting so hot, the intake manifold and stuff, it just wasn't going to work the way I wanted it to. And also, this intake's got cooling in it. You can run cooling lines through it. There's one here and one in the back goes through the bottom of it, so you can run an intercooler on it. Put the injectors in it, in the intake, made the fuel rail out of that billet stock you can get on eBay, fuel rail stock, made all that stuff, and got her running. The back is, the back part back here, this is a 4-barrel, cheap 4-barrel eBay throttle body. I put it on the lathe and cut it down to fit the back of this supercharger, and it made it a little bit more difficult to get figured out. But the reason I did it, I had made a bigger throttle body than what I had on it before, and it made it where it was hard to drive, because part throttle, you was, letting a lot of air in. So this style, I can drive on the two barrels, and then when I pull it in, the 4 will come in. The throttle position sensor's on the bottom. It's a bi-directional one because the stock one wouldn't work. It was going in the wrong direction. Put that on there, sealed all this up, built the mount for the throttle and idle air motor, and she runs good. The E85 is a game changer. The fuel system, I've got everything to change it out. I got a Hellcat fuel pump to go in the tank. I got 3/8 line to go all the way front to back, returnless style system. I got to do that next because it's wanting to run out of fuel pretty quick. But it's expected with E85 and a stock pump. It's just not going to work. But what I want to show y'all is the tune on it. If you're ever doing this, it took me about 3 weekends to get this thing to run and drive and all that, but the view's a lot better. I don't even want to put a hood on it, but I got to. That breather's not going to stay like that. I'm going to cut and TIG and make some aluminum tube to go down and put one of them kind of breathers on it, or build a box or something. I don't know yet, but right now it's just in the final stages. I got to do the fuel system next, get that working, which is going to require retuning the whole thing. But this tune I'm going to show you is for 43 psi, 550cc injectors, or 53-pound injectors, and E85. Now, if you do anything other injectors or bigger or smaller, it's going to be different. This ain't going to work, but I can show you stuff that you need to know to make it work. Here, y'all look at that while I get this thing going. It changed the Betty big time. Now, I did pull the head off and put ARP head bolts, multi-layer gasket, dual valve springs, redid the valve train, reseated the valves, all that stuff, and fully ported the head. I don't know if I got any pictures of the head. I'll put them up if I do, but I basically matched it to that Newcomer Racing copper gasket that he sells. I got that and kind of massaged it to port match it to that, the intake and the engine. And this sucker will run in overdrive. It's cruising at 70, 75, and it doesn't bother it any. Before I put the blower on there, overdrive was pretty much useless. It makes about 1.5 pounds in overdrive. And get my computer to work. Let's see here. What's the last? I'll show you this part of it in a minute. You'll understand that better. This is my fuel trim. Now, if you look at it, you can pause it if you need to use it or whatever. You got to be careful with your cursor because you might change things you don't want to. You got to always look at this when you go from one page to the other. Undo last, because I just upped that one cell without even knowing it till I just happened to look. But what you really got to fix and change to get it to work is your base fuel. Now I'm running it like so. They got EGR on fuel, EGR off fuel. EGR on I got set to 0, okay, and I'm just running it on one table. EGR off, which I just showed you, that's EGR off. That's my whole fuel table. Otherwise it's kind of like working between them. Now if you do that, you have to go to, I really should get my tripod out and set this phone up. See if I can hold it right there. Okay. If you do what I just said, you go to your airflow. Okay, we got a 2-bar map sensor, GM 2-bar map. You can get them anywhere. I suggest spending more than 20 bucks on it, but this is what I ended up with my scale set at. This is your map sensor scale. That's what I got it set at. That's factory. And that makes it half, half the fuel scale on your fuel map, because usually they read from 0 to 100 kPa, which is wide open throttle. Well, if you got boost, the only way you're gonna make it read it is you got to half the map, and then it'll read from 0 down to wherever your map's set at. This puts you at 40 kPa at wide open throttle vacuum, no boost, no nothing. So anything below that would be boost, and you tune it that way. You set your map like that. Now to get the fuel to work on just one table, you go to, I'll show you something else too. General fuel airflow. Let me find it. Alright, this is how you force it to stay in open loop. Now, if you got an open loop, you got to tune everything. You can't use, it's not going to pull any fuel. It's just going to leave it there. But if you set your closed loop enable to 250 degrees coolant temp, which a 4.0 might get there on gas, but anyway, set it at 250 or higher or whatever, it'll stay in open loop. And then you can tune off one table. Now if you go, I found something, I was having issues with it still wanting to like change. What it'll do is if you set your airflow, if you set your map sensor up like this and you set it up, it'll crank up, run fine. About the 3rd key cycle, it's going to start getting richer and richer and just start doing stupid stuff. And it took me a minute to figure out why it was doing that. I unhooked the battery and came back out one morning to try it on a Saturday, and cranked up, ran fine. But after the third cycle, and I'm like, well, something is defaulting somewhere because of that. And it had a code in it for high map, low map. So I looked around and I found in the engine diagnostics section, you go to airflow and it's showing your map sensor. And I've got it, you can see what I changed. My map 5-volt low limit to 50. You set that to 50 and that worked. And now when you go to your pressures, if you look at the stock tune, your default is 98 kPa. That's an invalid, like if it sees a problem with your map sensor, it defaults to this, to 98, which is not what the map sensor is reading. It's going to be reading around 50. So you change that to, that's what I changed it to, 55, like that, and that fixed that, and all is good. There's the map scale again. Okay, now let's go to timing. This is something, if you got boost, you got to do this too. Now I didn't take no chances. I got my base fuel, my base spark. If you look at it, anything that would be in boost, straight 20. And I got it at 20 degrees of timing. Okay, and I've got the warm spark is set the same way. I'll show you. 20. In your corrections, you have to go in your base corrections, your air intake temperature and engine coolant temperature. This is actually useful with boost. You can go into your, say, air intake temperature. Now if the intake air temperature starts rising on it, as it gets going up, you're more prone to detonation. So what I've got it doing is, if it gets above 147, and this is your kPa, so this would all be boost, because we just talked about that. From here over is boost. From 40 over, so I got it pulling the degree out every 2 degrees, 3 degrees, 4 degrees, and then up in here 3. And then the hotter it gets, it just keeps pulling more time. And if it gets up 240 and I ain't paying attention, it's gonna pull 5 degrees out up there, additional on the 20. So change hands. Same thing with the engine coolant. Same thing, engine coolant. Now if you got a boosted Jeep, you're gonna kill it quick if you don't get with your timing. Now if you got it doing it some funky way and forcing it to go to 100 kPa, there's not much timing in the stock map like that, so it would work. I changed a couple things in park, neutral, idle. I want it to be 20 degrees straight when it's in park, so help it cool off, less exhaust gas temperature. Wide open modifier. Now this is a spark modifier. Now it's going to modify your spark with the kPa. You just set all that to 0. And I think that's about it. There is a retard function to retard the timing. Now this is a new software, I just updated it, but I couldn't, I don't see, if you turn it on, it doesn't, like, watch, if you go to it, retard factor of fuel on, it's, I got it set to 0. It doesn't let you do anything with it. Let me see. When I drove it yesterday, I drove it like 60 miles and come back and tuned on it some more, and I found out this is something that needs to be messed with too. If you go over here to transient, that's where you're going along at part throttle, say 30% throttle, and you kind of let off to slow down at whatever, red light's coming or what. Well, these things pull fuel and decel, and it was wanting to make it go really lean. Let me see if where I changed that at. I turned it off. The deceleration fuel cut off. I did it the same way as the open closed loop. I just set it at 250, and then I know if my Jeep starts doing stupid stuff, it's probably hot. I need to look at temperature gauge. That's the transient stuff. I added fuel there, but I think it's part of power enrichment. Power enrichment is this section here, and this won't work unless you're in closed loop. So you're basically getting rid of all this. Is this the right way to do it? You know, I think so for what I'm doing, because I don't care about the fuel mileage. I don't drive it on the street. It's more of a trailer queen, go to the woods, and I mean, I can, it's legal, but I don't drive a lot on the street. And plus, I don't want it changing things and me not understanding why it's doing it, because that's a whole nother bucket of can of worms to get into. I've tried turning it on after I've got everything straight, and it just wants to go lean. Let's see if there's anything else I could cover. Remember that one setting that it's not going to want to run right is in engine diagnostics. This setting right here. If you don't change that, what will happen is every time you key the Jeep on, if you look at your scanner, close all this. If you find out that you're tuning on it, let me connect to it, and every time you crank it up, it's acting funny or whatever, you just had it set right, you crank it up again, it's acting stupid again. You'll watch your millivolts and stuff on here for your map sensor. But anyway, what happens is every time you key it on, mine sets at 40 when I key it on. Well, the next time it'd be setting down here at 60. Then the next time it'd be at 25. It was just all over the place until I adjusted the barometer. It's got a barometer inside the ECM, and it's making it, if it doesn't see at least 100, in between 95 and 100 when it keys on, it goes into that default, and it just monkeys it all up, and you'll tune on it for days and can't get it right, and it's that barometer setting. Let me see. Let's see if we can get connected to it. You don't think 4 minutes is that long until you have to upload tunes of these things 100 times. It's like it takes forever, and it takes this much time to get this up, and you're back and forth. Because if you got this up, you can't upload. You have to log off of this, which makes sense because it's using up the CAN bus to read this. See, before you change that barometer, every time you crank it up, it's going to be in a different position all over the place. And now it's setting at 45, and that's what I have it set at, 45. So vacuum, driving around town, whatever, in the trails, I got all this for boost, because I have another pulley, and we're eventually going to build a motor for boost. It's got some ring gap in it, but other than that, it's stock in the bottom end, and the head work and the dual valve springs and all that makes it turn 6,000 RPMs, which I have not done yet. But if you let's see how she does. I've been messing with stuff under the hood. It sounds like I got something unplugged. Oh, that's your startup fuel. much boost it's making with that pulley on it, which is what, 45 to 65, 45, 55, 65, 15 kPa, probably about 3 pounds. And I'm running it kind of rich at idle. Yeah, I'll show you all that too. That's why it sounded so loaded up when it started. I just changed that. But if you go back into your engine and your fuel, open loop base, you got time warm up. This is your map for that. It adds that much to it. You can take away from this to get your idle right. Your start up till warm up, and it's a seconds thing. Got layer motor on. They're cut off. See, now that it's straightened out, it's warmed up. That's still a little rich, but it's good for what I'll do. And I ain't way not done with it. I'm gonna show you all the temps. See, intercooler temp's 158, air intake temp 120. And I've been running it, it's almost to, you know, getting up in temperature. Let's see what our timing did down there. See there? My intake temp is at, was at 120, 116 when I revved it up, so it's at 21. It'll slowly pull more timing. Anywho, turn that noise off. It's a lot louder than it ever has been, that's for sure. But it was an adventure. Now I gotta clean my mess up. I've got new fuel line. I've got a fuel pressure regulator, all that stuff to do now. I got about a half tank of fuel I gotta get out of it. But the E85 changed the game on it. I'm telling you, it does not even want to get up to temp. I think if I had, now I haven't driven it on the highway, but, well, I've driven on the highway about 60 miles, but I'm not driven it in the woods slow rolling. That's why I'm kind of leaving it rich at idle, so it'll kind of not foul the plugs, but keep it cool at the same time. That stuff's amazing. Luckily, we have a pump down the road, and I can just go get it. So, but there ain't too many times I've been able to grab my intake after it's been running and not get myself burned. That stuff burns so cool that just as spraying in that much of the runner, it's helping cool this down. And I'm still going to put an intercooler, like a heat exchange somewhere, and put water to this. I'm thinking about just running it right here, because this stays on this side. I put a gauge on it, you know, a laser, and it's like 146 degrees going in the engine with it been running for 45 minutes. And when I drove to town the other day to my buddy's house, we got there, shut it off. You could put your hand on this cap and it wasn't even hot. It was just cool. So the E85 definitely has cooled it down big time, and it's like 105 octane fuel, so that's good. And I'm going to boost this motor till it don't like it no more, and then we're going to build one for it, and then I'm definitely going to put that small pulley on here. This pulley's only spinning this 9,000 RPMs at 6,000 RPMs engine. 9,000 engine. This is at, or 6,000 engine, sorry. This is spinning the rotors at 9,000. That other one will spin it to its max, which is 18,000. So it should make double what it does now. Now I don't know what it's gonna make when I drive it this time, because the last time I drove it, I didn't have any boost to the bottom of this gate. So it was just running off the spring that was in here, and it only made 3 pounds, but it was pushing this open. You could see it in the chart, in the data log. You can just see it go down to 3 pounds and carry all the way over to 5,200 RPMs. It didn't drop off, go up, none of that. So it was bleeding off somewhere. It was pushing the spring open. I had to make this lever. I should have made it longer, but we'll see. But now I've got it hooked up to where I got boost on the bottom. So as soon as vacuum goes away and this closes, boost is going to push it closed. So it'll push it to whatever, it'll hold it closed and it'll make what it's going to make. But I've got to do the fuel system before we do that, because it was running out of fuel at 3 pounds. And even at 3 pounds, you could notice it. It's crazy. As far as the blower install, I got a little video. I'll try to put something together at the end. And if y'all got any questions or whatever, holler, send me a message, or write something down in the comments, and I'll look at it and tell you what I think. But I had to make this presses on is what I did. It came with a 2.2 pulley that just pressed on there. This is a TRD supercharger for the 4.8 V8 Toyota, I think is what it was. I got it on eBay a long time ago. So I've had this for 2 years. But anyway, I built and made a press-on hub to go on here. That's just steel, and actually you put something on it like clear coat, and to make it accept these E4's Edelbrock pulleys. Now this idler is the same as the factory one down there. The plan is when this goes smaller, this has got to go smaller. So I'll take and move the idler down there and replace the old one that's been on there, and I'll make a pulley for this to clear the belt here. And it ain't had any slipping problems, anything. But when you're tuning on these things, if you're using that tune that I've just showed you, if you set the map sensor up and you're in Florida or at the same atmosphere or close to it, I think we're 14.7 here, atmosphere pressure. If you're anywhere else above that, it's going to change it. But if you look where I changed that borrow minimum and all that stuff, that's how you fix that issue. And you basically change your borrow to whatever you think your map needs. You're just basically going to have to put the stock map on it, key it on, see where it's at, put the 2 bar on there, key it on, see where it ends up at, and adjust it till you got half your scale. And you don't need as much as I got. You could run it down to 50. And I have 2 of these, and that's another thing. Every one of those sensors are different. I got one from Fast and put on here. That's what's on it now. And it reads 10 kPa higher than the old one. So anytime you change any of this stuff, you're going to have to probably retune it. But that tune right there, if you copied it and looked at it for E85 with 55 or 53 pound injectors, the stock pump with 43 psi, it should run enough that you can get it running and make sure all this other stuff's going to work. I was so much worried about the belt, was what I was worried about coming off, but it ain't. It did what it's supposed to do. But I did a lot of measuring. That's a big 3/4 bolt going through here. This is steel bolt all the way threaded through the back side of that, and that metal plate here is welded to and braced to the bottom plate that I doubled up, and it's recessed down inside here. I cut all that. You'll see it in the video. I cut it out, recessed down in there, and then basically line everything up and good to go. I didn't think I was about to make this work. I was going to put an electric power steering pump on it. It's what I talked about doing, but if I could make it work, I was going to, because it's less crap to tear up. And it worked, which is probably why I'm going to run the cooling lines from here with a pump to here, because I don't use it anyway. Now I ain't got nothing but a short run of hoses. That'll keep it at least what the engine temp is, because with a supercharger, that thing will grow to 350 degrees like that. if you're putting it under boost. Now, we may put a methanol kit on it. I still got my methanol kit. May put that on there, and that'll knock that down to 100 and something. Then better boost. You can put more boost to it. I got a mess out here. I got to clean up. I've been for 3 months hammering on this thing, and I got to clean my mess up and start over. But I'll see you fellas. I'll make another video. Betty's still alive and kicking. We're gonna push the, we done pushed the stock chassis to its max for the stock suspension. Everybody knows that. They told me it never would work, but it did. We bent the carrier once. It's been on rocks, mud, sand, highway. Been all over the place, this thing, for 8 years. And the thing that I thought was going to break was these hubs. But we may break them now because it's got a lot more power than it had before. So we'll see. But we're going to push the stock bottom end to its max, which is probably going to be about 10-12 psi. We'll see. Multi-layer head gasket, ARP studs, everything's torqued and retorqued. Good valve springs to keep it from backfiring and blowing that off. So, and that MSD coil is for a Dodge truck, and I made a plug for it to put that on there, and that works. Like a 2000 Dodge Ram 5.9. It's MSD coil for that, and they probably make one for the Jeep. I don't know. I just seen it and figured I could make it work, and I did. But other than that, that's it. We got to put a catch can on it too, because that has got to get the moisture. That one back there may get the moisture out of the engine, but a catch can will work better. I guess that's it. I'll make another video soon. I know I said that last time. It's been 2 years, but boys, I've been busy, and this thing took me a good hot minute to make. The most stressful part of doing it was the injector bungs going into the intake. And if you notice, I made new studs, 9/16 Dorman kit, and I made stainless grommets, the thick washers that's fat on one side, skinny on the other, to bolt everything together. I made them out of stainless, and that sealed up all my leaks, because I had exhaust leaks no matter what I did with this thing, but that fixed it. And there's 3/8 studs with the brass nuts. I wrapped the header, which ain't no fun, but it's all good now, man. It's going. She's running. She's doing her thing. Drove to town, went all the way to town back yesterday, got fuel, went to a buddy of mine's house, and my speedometer's wrong, but I was on my GPS, I was running 70, 72, and no problem, just cruising along there, which is this Jeep would not do before at all. You put it in overdrive, it'd slow down. So now I gotta get the fuel out of it. I dread doing this because all this dirt on this thing. I need to wash it first probably, but pull the tank and put, didn't I say I was gonna go just a second ago? It's been a minute, boys. I hadn't seen y'all, talk to y'all in a long time. This is a Hellcat pump, Walbro Hellcat pump. There's all the stuff to install it. Fittings. I got 50 feet of 6N E85 line. I've got all the fittings for that. I got a fuel filter. I've got the boost reference regulator. If y'all have any questions on this, there ain't a lot of information online about this, about doing a Jeep, but it's getting better. Also got boost gauge, fuel pressure gauge down there, so we can fill in them 2 holes and know what fuel pressure we got. And I may make a video when I retune it and go through the whole process, but I'm telling you, it's boring, and it's a lot of waiting, because 4 minutes to upload it, try it out, blah blah blah. But because I'm gonna try to set it at the same fuel pressure, but those injectors are made to run at 56 psi, but they can go down to 40, so we'll see. The tune might not change that much, but we're definitely gonna have 5 times the fuel flow, because this is a 155 pump, which is only good to probably 300 horsepower, and it's done. So we're gonna double that, or 5 times that fuel, and go again. And fellas, y'all have a good one, and I will talk to you soon. Take it easy. Later.